Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving straight into the microscopic engines that are actually driving your biology. We spent so much time talking about macronutrients, right? The proteins, fats, and carbs that we eat in massive quantities every single day. But today, we're going to completely shift our focus. We are looking at the invisible, atomic level mechanics that literally make human life possible. So let's start by pinning down our subject. Trace elements are absolutely vital dietary components. They're out there driving our biochemical reactions, maintaining our cellular structure, and forming our most critical antioxidant defenses. But think about the sheer, tiny scale we're dealing with here. You only need these in quantities of less than 100 milligrams per day. We're talking about amounts smaller than a literal pinch of salt. And here's the real kicker. Your body can't synthesize them on its own. You have to get them from your environment, through your diet, or the entire biological machine just grinds to a halt. Now, the absolutely crucial thing to understand about these elements is what scientists call the V-shaped dose-response relationship. Imagine a highly sensitive scale. Tipping that scale toward too little or too much both lead to serious disease. Since these elements are highly reactive metals and minerals, having too little means your enzymes just can't function, but having an excess, that creates toxic accumulation. Your optimal health sits right at the very bottom of that V. It's basically a microscopic chemical tightrope that your body is constantly trying to walk.
Here is our roadmap for today's explainer. First, we'll cover the V-shaped biological balance. Then meet the energy and metabolism managers, followed by the builders and defenders. After that, we'll look at our special agents, iodine and cobalt, before finishing up with what happens when genetic balance breaks.
All right, Section 1, the V-shaped biological balance, or navigating the microscopic tightrope. Let's get into it. So the periodic table is massive, right? But our biological requirements are surprisingly picky. Out of 15 identified trace elements found in the body, which, by the way, remarkably includes things like silicon, tin, and even arsenic, we only have rock-solid compelling evidence that 10 are absolutely essential for human health. That top 10 includes iron, zinc, copper, chromium, selenium, iodine, manganese, molybdenum, cobalt, and fluorine. And this is kind of wild to think about, but deficiency syndromes for a lot of these were barely even recognized until pretty recently. Because we need them in such exceedingly small amounts, and because they're basically everywhere in our food, we only really discovered how vital they are when patients were put on long-term intravenous feeding that accidentally left out these specific invisible engines.
Moving right along to Section 2, energy and metabolism managers. Think of these guys as your cellular switchboards.
Elements like chromium, manganese, and molybdenum are quietly pulling the levers of our energy, our blood sugar, and our metabolic enzymes without us ever even noticing. Let's take chromium first. You only need about 20 to 30 micrograms a day, mostly found in whole grains and broccoli, and it acts to enhance the action of insulin. But get this, if you eat a diet highly processed with sucrose or fructose, not only are those foods super low in chromium, but the sugars actually cause you to lose chromium right through your urine. Then there's manganese, heavily found in nuts and teas. It's a non-specific enzyme activator for really complex mechanics, like pyruvate carboxylase, which manages your carbs and lipids, and it's essential for connective tissue. Finally, molybdenum, which you get from legumes like lentils, acts as a crucial cofactor for major mammalian enzymes, like sulfite oxidase. Seriously, without these three managers, your body's energy production fundamentally breaks down. That brings us to Section 3, the builders and defenders. We are fortifying the human fortress here. Starting off, we've got a powerhouse antioxidant bodyguard, selenium. Selenium is a key constituent of the enzyme glutathione peroxidase. It acts as a cellular shield, neutralizing free radicals and protecting your cells from oxidative stress. But its resume is wildly impressive well beyond just that. Did you know that the thyroid gland actually contains the highest concentration of selenium in your entire body? It's vital there for converting the T4 hormone into the active T3 hormone, which regulates your temperature and metabolism. Plus, higher blood levels of selenium protect blood vessels for heart health, create essential proteins to prevent mental decline, and are even vital for sperm motility and fertility. In fact, in regions of the world where the soil is severely depleted of selenium, we actually see devastating heart conditions like Keshan disease. It is absolutely a master defender of human tissue. And working right alongside selenium is zinc. Zinc is actually the second most abundant trace element in the human body, right behind iron. Your body relies on it for over 300 different enzyme functions, not to mention DNA synthesis and cell division. Zinc is basically the heavy lifter. It helps immune cells fight off viruses. It's absolutely vital for skin integrity and wound healing, which is exactly why zinc oxide is so great for skin rashes, and it plays a massive role in vision. When combined with other antioxidants, zinc significantly lowers the risk of advanced age-related macular degeneration. It even improves insulin sensitivity and reduces the inflammation associated with chronic acne.
Now for Section 4, Special Agents, Iodine and Cobalt. These elements have highly exclusive biological missions.
Think about this tiny number for a second, 150 micrograms. That is the daily adult requirement for iodine. Iodine is the heaviest of all the essential trace elements, and its mission is incredibly focused. It is overwhelmingly dedicated to thyroid hormone synthesis. The thyroid demands about 70 micrograms a day just to synthesize adequate amounts of hormones. But iodine is also distributed to the mammary glands for fetal development, to the eyes, and even into the cerebral spinal fluid. But if you fall on the deficient left side of that V curve we talked about, the results are genuinely tragic. Low dietary iodine prompts the pituitary gland to increase secretion of thyroid-stimulating hormone, or TSH. That constant stimulation causes the thyroid cells to undergo hyperplasia, leading to a massive swelling in the neck known as a goiter. But the most serious, heartbreaking effect of iodine deficiency happens in the womb. Thyroid hormones are absolutely required for neuronal migration and myelination of a developing fetal brain. Severe deficiency during pregnancy increases the risk of congenital abnormalities and permanently decreases a child's IQ. This is exactly why countries all over the world fortify table salt with iodine. And if you thought iodine was microscopic, let's talk about cobalt. The daily requirement is a staggering 1.67 micrograms. And cobalt has exactly one known job in the human body. It is an integral, non-negotiable part of vitamin B12. Literally no other function for cobalt in the human body is known. Without that tiny 1.67 microgram speck, you simply cannot process vitamin B12. Finally, Section 5, when genetic balance breaks. Let's look at the devastating consequences of what our body's transport systems fail. Let's see how our V-shaped curve thesis applies to the trace element copper. Copper normally plays a vital role in everything from energy production to neurotransmitter synthesis. But what happens when the genes responsible for moving copper around the body mutate? Well, on the deficient end of the curve, a mutation in the ATP7A gene causes a rare, fatal disorder called Menkes disease. The body can't absorb or distribute copper properly, leading to severe neurological problems and this physical hallmark of tangled, brittle, steely hair. That's extreme deficiency. Now flip to the toxic end of the curve. A mutation in a highly similar gene, ATP7B, causes Wilson's disease. Here, the body absorbs copper fine, but it can't get rid of it. So toxic copper builds up in the liver and brain, causing severe organ damage and psychiatric problems. It's the exact same element, but genetic transport failures push the body to the extreme, deadly ends of the V curve. We see a similar systemic collapse with an ultra-rare genetic defect called aceruloplasminemia. Basically, this is a failure to synthesize a specific protein called ceruloplasmin. Because trace elements rely on these proteins for management, the complete absence of this one leads to highly toxic iron accumulation in the brain and visceral organs. It usually shows up later in adulthood with a devastating triad of symptoms: diabetes, retinal degeneration, and progressive movement problems. All because the biological management of one trace metal failed. And lastly, we have a fascinating transport failure involving zinc. A broken ZIP4 transporter, which is a gene crucial for balancing zinc, causes a condition called acrodermatitis enteropathica. This was once a fatal genetic disorder where the intestines simply refuse to absorb zinc. Patients get abnormally low blood zinc concentrations, dropping below 30 micrograms per deciliter, causing severe rashes around the mouth, hands, and feet, along with total hair loss. But here's the incredible part. Because this is just an absorption bottleneck, the symptoms are miraculously entirely reversed simply by overwhelming the system with high-dose oral zinc supplements. So, as we wrap up this explainer on the incredible science of trace elements, I want you to step back for a second and just think about the sheer complexity happening inside your cells right now. From chromium managing your insulin, to selenium shielding your heart, to that microscopic speck of cobalt making your vitamin B12 work, these invisible engines are working tirelessly to keep you alive. Your health isn't just about eating enough calories or hitting your macros. It is a microscopic chemical tightrope. So the next time you look at a plate of food, ask yourself, are you just feeding your stomach, or are you actually giving your invisible engines the exact atomic codes they need to thrive?